Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. Welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and writers and editors and people who are putting stuff out in the Bronx. In our second segment, we're going to talk to a Bronxite who is just nominated for a Grammy, which will be interesting and exciting. But in our first segment, we're going to say hello to Caroline Lewis, who is a healthcare reporter, or the healthcare reporter at WNYC in Gothamist. Nice to have you with us, Caroline.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Just a little background about you, if you wouldn't mind. How did you find your way to WNYC?
Yeah, so I'm from New York originally, and I went to the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism, and then I actually interned at the time at WNYC's Health Desk. And after graduating, I covered healthcare for Crain's New York Business. And when I left there, I freelanced for Gothamist and sort of found my way into the newsroom permanently a few years ago, covering COVID, and I've covered, everything since. So.
Has healthcare always been a desire of yours, like something you want to do? Or did you just kind of step into it and say, well, this is as good as any and, I can handle it?
It was an accident, I would say, but
I
a
knew that
happy
was the
accident.
case. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a journalist, and I was always interested in, issues around like, sort of racial justice, disparities in access, criminal justice reform, things like that. And interestingly, in healthcare, there are a lot of issues around disparities in healthcare access. There's a lot of issues around, how we treat certain issues like mental health, drug use, things like that. Is it a criminal justice issue or a healthcare issue? So there's really a lot you can do in healthcare.
It's really interesting that you presented it that way, because the article that I thought was particularly interesting was the one entitled "Overdose Prevention Centers Did Not Increase Crime in New York City Neighborhoods," as study finds. Now, I mentioned it before the show. I'm going to give you a little background. In my community, there was a proposal of an empty storefront that they were going to make it a treatment center of some sort, maybe a needle exchange program, etc. But the community was like, oh, it's going to bring drug addicts in, it's going to bring drug dealers in, and it's going to change the nature of our neighborhood, because it was in kind of a very busy area. What you are now telling us, and what the piece that you did for WNYC and Gothamist showed, that the numbers don't support that fear. Why don't you explain a little bit what you found?
Yeah. So what was interesting about this study was it looked at, sort of crime and quality of life issues around the two overdose prevention centers in Manhattan. And those are spaces where people can use illicit drugs like fentanyl under staff supervision, so that if someone overdoses, someone can intervene. And there's already been a lot of, data reported showing that they've intervened in over 1,000 overdoses since these centers opened in late 2021. But there wasn't as much, sort of research looking at what the impact was on the surrounding areas. And like you said, there was a lot of concern that these centers would bring more public drug use, even though, their stated mission is to give people a place, a private place to do drugs, and so that they aren't doing it on the street. People were concerned about more public drug use, more crime, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the study looked at drug statistics around crime in the area, in the areas around these two centers between, early 2019 and late 2022. So about a year before and after they opened. And each center was based in what was already a syringe exchange program. So they were already serving drug users before the overdose prevention centers were added. And so the study authors looked at the change in sort of like crime statistics during that time, but then also compared it to other sites around the city where there are syringe exchange programs, to look at whether adding an overdose prevention center, which is really just sort of like a small change, actually made a difference.
And so I can just call out numbers. Felonies increased by similar amounts near the overdose prevention centers and comparison sites. So, in other words, there was no spike in crime after they had put this center in, or these centers in different locations. In other words, it wasn't one place. They did a survey. And by the way, we should credit the Journal of the American Medical Association for that study. I wonder if a study like this and your wonderful reporting for Gothamist would reach communities who are concerned about these things and realize that maybe we're looking at solutions here rather than creating problems. I understand the fear. I mean, nobody wants to, frankly, be hanging around with drug addicts who might behave improperly. But in these centers don't seem to be creating a bigger problem than you might otherwise have in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what the study authors concluded, and they looked at 911 calls, 311 calls, summonses, and crime reports filed by both the public and police. And so they were sort of trying to, use a range of data. But of course, it's not perfect. And one thing they did find is that arrests for drug use and weapons actually decreased dramatically around the overdose prevention
That would
centers.
shock a lot of people.
Yeah. And I mean, for people sort of in the know about how they came to be, I don't think it's super shocking because, former Mayor de Blasio had to sort of create an agreement with the police that you're not going to, crack down on people coming into these centers or else nobody's going to use them. And so I think that's sort of understanding what happened.
That's pretty logical, frankly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
I mean,
for laughing, but it is pretty logical. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for drug possession. If you're going to get people for drug possession when they're going somewhere explicitly to use drugs, it doesn't really work. But I think the question is whether some people will look at that and think it invalidates all of the data, even though, there are plenty of other sort of data sources they looked at showing that, for instance, 911 calls about medical and emergencies and crime also went down around the OPCs.
And the number that you had in your article was 30%. That's a significant number.
Yeah.
We did a show. This goes back, got to be 1994. When my TV show Bronx Talk first started, we did a show on needle exchanges, which was at that point, HIV. I mean, there was a lot going on, but it was a relatively unique and innovative concept, and we did a show about it. It just made sense to me, although I understand personally the fear in neighborhoods saying, well, wait a minute, we don't want more drug addicts around here. But if the data shows that it doesn't increase crime and maybe helps some people make contact, et cetera, maybe we got half a chance to do a little better.
Yeah. And I did speak with one of the study authors who was actually a former police officer in New York. And, he's worked both in police departments elsewhere and also as a researcher. And, there was another study in the works on sort of the impact of these overdose prevention centers in the area, but the results weren't due out until 2027. And he basically said, we can't wait that long. The conversations about whether to open these spaces, whether to fund them, that's all happening right now. And so we need to look at what data we have that can sort of speak to this, debate that's going on.
Well, year after year, the South Bronx leads New York City in drug overdose deaths. That is quoted out of your article. So now let's get to the reality of St. Anne's Corner of Harm Reduction in Longwood. Is working to open the first overdose prevention center in the Bronx, but they're running into this same dialogue. Now, I can understand in that neighborhood or any neighborhood that people would say, "Hey, we don't. What are we doing?" On the other hand, maybe it's a way of addressing a problem that we haven't figured out yet. I mean.
Yeah. So St. Anne's, what's interesting is St. Anne's has been in its current location for a long time, again, with a needle exchange program. And of course, they have a lot of other services there. But basically, they're already serving drug users in the neighborhood. But there are people, on the local community board and local, elected officials who believe that even though that's the case, opening an overdose prevention center would just attract a lot more people to the area, potentially result in more public drug use. And that's something they don't want. And so they were pushing St. Anne's to relocate and open their program near the hub instead, which is a highly trafficked commercial area and an area people say has a lot of drug use.
I used to have an office down there, and I can vouch for that. I mean, I saw people on the street, overdosing, and it was very sad.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, speaking to Joyce Rivera, who runs St. Anne's, like she
Mhm.
even agrees with them, like, oh, that would be a great location for one of these centers. But it's expensive to relocate. And she, wants to buy a space so that they're not forced to move soon.
Right.
She found a space last time I checked in with her over the summer, they found a space that cost like $11 million or something like that. And one of the big issues facing overdose prevention centers right now is that even though they have, support from the mayor's office, they don't actually have funding because basically the city and the state both are afraid to put any money towards these centers because they, are still technically federally illegal.
Well, that might be the case. On the political side, they may not want to do that because of the a public outcry. In other words, elected official says, "Oh, I'm going to do this in your neighborhood," and they're going to say, "Well, we don't want you to be our representative anymore." Before we run out of time, just a couple of minutes. You also wrote about how City Meals on Wheels and other senior services are prepping for the next disaster, next New York City disaster. I think that's interesting because we're all concerned about who knows what we will do. Just a couple of words, if you would, about how they are, in fact, preparing for all the possibilities that likely will happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, City Meals on Wheels actually is a nonprofit that provides sort of supplementary meals to what the other Meals on Wheels programs do. So, like Meals on Wheels programs around the city deliver food to homebound seniors, and City Meals on Wheels sort of helps support them. It provides meals on weekends, holidays, and in emergencies when they can't get to people. And so, one of the things they do is prepare these emergency food kits for seniors. And, they were saying they used to go out just in the fall, ahead of the winter months in case there's a snowstorm or something else that disrupts deliveries. And now they're saying we need to give these out, more frequently throughout the year. We need to do more to ensure that people always have food because you never really know what kind of emergency you're preparing for.
Do we
Yeah.
know what actually they're doing? I realize that they're getting their heads together about it. Do we have a result to that conference?
Right. Well, I mean, it's a small change, but one thing they're doing is sort of just giving out these boxes more frequently throughout the year. But then even like, speaking to JASA, another senior service provider, they were saying like since COVID, they've realized like their Meals on Wheels program has this window, this like connection to people who are otherwise
Right.
isolated and vulnerable. And so they can sort of interview them about what they need in an
What they need.
emergency,
Listen,
things like
we
that.
Caroline
Yeah.
Lewis from WNYC and Gothamist, we got to run. Thank you so much for all your reporting. Needless to say, in the Boogie Down Bronx, healthcare is, well, we're down here, but it's really that much of a priority for all of us. And what you do at WNYC and Gothamist is so important to us. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, as I mentioned at the top, it's Grammy nominee Bobby Sanabria who will be with us. Don't go away.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
STEM is everywhere. Like here, behind the scenes of The Walking Dead.
When we break down clothes, we tumble it with trisodium phosphate, rock salt, and dish detergent.
We stitched together images of our model and created a 3D set that could be walked through in a VR headset.
We're able to turn 12 walkers into 1,000 walker boards.
STEM can create new worlds on and off the screen. What will you make with STEM? Get inspired at shecanstem.com.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. To say that I'm thrilled would be an understatement. Let's see, it is Bobby Sanabria, who is I should call him Maestro Bobby Sanabria, and the Multiverse Big Band have just been nominated for Best Latin Jazz Recording of 2024 for a Grammy Award. It is the 9th nomination for you, Senor Sanabria. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Gary. Pleasure to be here.
And along with him, and this is a topic for discussion, two vocalists. It is Janis Siegel. Nice to see you, Janis.
Thanks, Gary. Nice to meet
Janis
you.
is in Italy, so
I am. I'm in
she's
Pescara.
she's eating well. And Jennifer,
you just caught me. I was just about to go down and eat.
all right, well then we'll give you a reason to be hungry. Jennifer Jade Ledesna, another vocalist. Nice to have you with us, back with us. You've been on the program before. Bobby, first of all, let's talk about Vox Humana, which is the CD, somewhat of a I don't want to say departure, because all music is always included in what you do, but this is kind of a new look and a new attempt and a new approach by the Multiverse Big Band. Tell us all about it.
Well, in our previous albums, we've always included one or two vocal tracks, but on this album, the 99% of the album is vocals, except for the first opening track, which actually does have vocals as well. But on all the other tracks, there's 13 in total. On 12 of them are these incredible vocalists. 2 of them are here, which is Janis Siegel from the Manhattan Transfer, the mighty Manhattan Transfer. I like to call her the Queen of Brooklyn, New York. And we got the Queen of the Bronx, one of the other vocalists, Jennifer Jade Ledesna, who happens to be half Dominican, half Puerto Rican, but all Bronx 24/7. And another great vocalist, Antoinette Montague, who happens to be from Newark, New Jersey. So they're 3 of the greatest contemporary examples of jazz vocalists today.
I was curious, and I'm, excuse me for being unfamiliar, but this was, and I have been to Dizzy's Club down there on the west side in Columbus Circle. This was recorded live at New York City's Dizzy Club downtown. Was it difficult doing a live recording? Is this what you do all the time? Or is this something also that's a little bit different for the Multiverse Big Band?
Well, we've had some experience before. As you well know, we recorded West Side Story Reimagined, our previous album, which was also nominated for a Grammy. And actually, that album won Album of the Year, given to us by the Jazz Journalists Association, which are the greatest jazz writers in the country and the world. So we're very proud of that. And that was recorded live at Dizzy's. It's a difficult thing because there's not much room for error. What you hear is what you get, and the only thing that you can do is maybe enhance a little bit when you're in the mixing and mastering process. But basically, the musicians have to be on point, and the music is not easy; it's difficult. So, and we're the only album done live. So it's a testimony to the greatness of these 3 great singers, and
as well as the people who recorded it. Let's be honest. Recording. Right. How many players in the band?
There's 24 of us.
Imagine recording 24 players. I mean, that's a right. Big enough job. Right. Last question for you for the moment, and then we're going to talk to the vocalists. Just the formation of the big band. Do you keep all the same musicians together? That would be an immense task, it would seem to me. And then, of course, finding talent. The level of talent in that band is through the roof. How do you do it?
It's difficult to say the least, but as Duke Ellington said, the way you keep the band together is pay them something called money. You know?
That works. That does work. Yeah, let's be real about that.
The band has been in existence for 25 years. This is our 25th anniversary celebration, and what a way to do it then with this great project that we've done. And hopefully we'll be coming to a city near you. We've been doing quite a few things over the year, and we hope to do many more.
I just saw that you're going on December 18th at 7 p.m. You're going to be at St. Paul's and St. Andrew's Church on 86th and West End Avenue.
So, well, I'll be there as a featured soloist because
you're going to be
the Jazz Nativity. That's for the Jazz Nativity.
Okay,
so I'll be there. That's Ann Phillips' great project. Another great vocalist, an unsung hero of the music.
Janis, you've been with Manhattan Transfer. Congratulations, of course, for all that great music. What is it like? What was it like recording with Bobby Sanabria and the Multiverse Big Band?
Honestly, it was thrilling.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah,
now, why?
Really.
Why would you say such a thing?
Because, first of all, whenever you get to sing with a great big band, it's very special. You know, that a band that plays together a lot as a unit, and the arrangements for this band are just off the charts great. And they're like a big, like feral carnivorous animal
Wow.
behind you.
So you know that for a vocalist, especially with a big band as opposed to, let's say, with one musician or two or three, that must be really exciting. Like I know what it feels like to be, in a band of that size and have it really be cooking. So it must motivate you to do to like, well, I better live up to what I'm supposed to do.
It's very, very exciting. And plus it's, I mean, you're doing it live. It's all live and the audience is part of it. And there's an excitement and a little tension and it's all working well, for the final product.
So if you love what you do, this would be the spot to be because it's exciting, it's unique. They're creating on the spot, all those kinds of things. Jennifer, let's talk with you. You have been around. You've sung with all kinds of people. What about for you? What about recording Vox Humana with Bobby and the big band?
I do feel blessed to jump off what Janis said in regard to the magnanimous force that is a big band behind you. I also feel very lucky that Bobby was my teacher at undergrad. So
I didn't know that.
It's a great way to feel a sonic family hugging you when you perform, as Panglossian as that might sound. It just feels like you're there and you're just like pushing forward the militia of what is the continuum of music in honor of the ancestors and the progeny to come. And it's like a sacred service every time we perform together.
That is a beautiful way to say it. That it's an honor and it's a pleasure. I think rather than keep talking, let's show something. This is an excerpt from something that Bobby had sent us from the actual recording and the actual performance at Dizzy's downtown. Let's take a look at Bobby Sanabria and the Multiverse Big Band.
It was love. I love you, Bobby. Don't let him take me. I'm a genie in a bottle. You got to rub me the right way. Love is kind of crazy with a spooky little boy like you. Spooky.
África te llama y te invita. Y Congo, Puerto Rico, ahí. Oye, que viva Puerto Rico.
All right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Is it Bobby Sanabria and the Multiverse Big Band? You got a chance to see the singers, and Bobby, you were saying that recording there was pretty good because they kind of know what they're doing there at Dizzy's, right?
Oh, they're the pros of pros. I have to give kudos to Rob McCumber, son, Jamie McCumber. Rob recorded West Side Story Reimagined, and his son, Jamie, recorded us with Vox Humana. So it's a testimony to the familial lineage of greatness that they have as engineers. And Dizzy's is, just the best. That video footage you saw, they have 5 to 6 cameras there, and they
know what they're doing.
They did all that switching, editing live. Yeah.
I saw a performance by Victor Goines and his orchestra there, and it was, what a great place. It was relaxed. You get the skyline behind you. Let's just go around the room. Let's see, Janis. What's next for you? You're gonna beg Bobby to let me sing again?
I'm going to beg him. Yes, I am going to beg him. The transfer is celebrating its 50th anniversary, and we're coming up to our last shows. Actually, our last show is December 15th at Disney Hall. So now we're in Italy, and we're doing a long European tour.
Right, and there you go. And then you'll figure out what's next.
Yep. I mean, I'm out of a job come January 1st.
So you are going to be begging.
No, she has a job definitely with us. Always.
There you go. And Jen, what about you? You're in the Bronx somewhere right now. And what's next for you? What are you working on?
Chicago at the Auditorium Theater. We're doing a production of Sugar Hill, the Nutcracker of Ellington and Strayhorn. And
it's baby.
With all the choreographers, and so I'm their singer, the angel.
Yeah, well, listen, you guys are all great. Bobby, have you already thought about the next project, or who knows?
Yes, and I used to talk about these things beforehand, but I don't want. I've learned now
not to do that,
not to say anything, because usually what happens is somebody is listening, watching, and
then they poach it.
Yeah,
we don't want that.
Listen, the nature of the business, but don't worry. It's like I always have a surprise in store, and like this one, and we hope to bring on February 4th the Grammy back to the Bronx. Last year, Samara Joy brought it to the North Bronx. We'll bring it back to the South Bronx.
There you go, Bobby Sanabria and the Multiverse Big Band. My friend, mi amigo, thank you so much for everything that you do for the Bronx and for music. And listen, we'll all be sitting there, and I'll be watching, saying, "Let's go, let's get him the big G." And Janis Siegel and Jennifer Jade Ledesma, thank you so much for just being who you are and sharing great music in our hometown Boogie Down Bronx.
Thank you, Gary, and for everybody watching, step into the multiverse. It's available on all platforms. Vox Humana.
Vox Humana. All right. Thank you so much. And that will do it for the Bronx Buzz for this evening. We will, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, I'll be back next week. We'll see you then. Good night.